On to the feature film The Castle, my next guest has established himself at the cutting edge of Australian comedy and satire. Now he's turned his attention to, believe it or not, fly fishing. Please welcome Rob Sitch. Welcome aboard, Rob.
Thanks, Ed.
It's great to have my first guest and filling in on the Midday show, a bloke I started working with in radio about 8 or 9 years ago, and in fact Rob was the MC at my wedding, so we're on old home ground here at the moment. But
we're like
Rob...
two old showbiz people. I felt like walking out and going, doing that little point thing.
Rob, fly fishing.
Took it up about 8 years ago, and then we were we just did it for pleasure, but we had this idea for 3 or 4 years that we were going to try and do a travel show. But we didn't want to do a destination show, so we came up with this idea: you always need a reason to make it interesting. And so we threw in the fly fishing as the kind of the MacGuffin at the end. But really it's about how we got there. One we hiked in, one we hired a light plane and flew all across Australia, and the cameraman was throwing up in the background while we were trying to get filmed, so some of the film might be a little scratchy. Another time we went on a plane in Venezuela, and the in-flight entertainment was the air hostess came out and played bingo in Spanish. And I was going, I didn't know the Spanish word for bingo, but I yelled anyway. But I also didn't know the Spanish word for 22, which I didn't have, and connected. Absolutely amazing place.
Now, I mean, Rex obviously has patented the kissing the fish and throwing them back. Yeah. Is there any gimmick involved?
Yeah, we kill them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we pick them up and kick them, and we think that's going to be a winner.
Now, the show's called A River Somewhere. It's next Wednesday on ABC television.
Yeah, that's right.
Six-part series? Six-part
series, yeah, which we had a fairly busy year last year. We did a film, and we're setting up the next series of Frontline. So in between, we'd take 5 days and whip away and try and put one of these together and things like that. But it was a little bit like seasickness. While you're doing it, it was hard because we shot it on film, but when you got back and you looked at the footage, and it came up really well, and so we felt great about it. OK, well, let's have a look at a piece of vision now from A River Somewhere.
By this stage, we'd covered quite a few miles upstream, and looking back, you could see the river snaking its way down through the valley behind us. Up ahead, the mountains loomed large.
By the time our trail hit the river again, it looked like just the sort of water trout love. Our expectations were starting to rise.
Looks fantastic.
Yeah, we tried to pioneer fly fishing in Italy, and we didn't succeed.
Any particular place? Venezuela, Italy, Scotland, Australia?
I've got to say New Zealand for me.
The one I left out?
Yeah.
Thank you.
The New Zealand, we found a road that I'd never read about or heard about, but it's a connection of a dirt track that crosses the entire Alps. It's 100 kilometres, and it uses the dirt tracks of old sheep stations. And so instead of taking the freeway across the Alps in New Zealand, you can go through all these old sheep stations and for 100 k's make it across. And we were out there by ourselves, you know, at 10,000 feet in a hire car.
As you are.
Wouldn't go on my own. And we were an old gate from an old homestead. We had to, open and get through. And a guy in army gear and camo and a machine gun came out from behind a bush, and probably the most polite guy we met in New Zealand, or he appeared like it, and he said, listen, we're a commando unit that are being chased as part of an exercise, and we've got behind, and we wondered whether you'd give us a lift.
Oh, well, now that machine gun, yeah, jump in, no worries.
I said, whatever you want to do. Yeah, you can have him a ticket back to Australia if you want. And he said, have you got any more? And he said, yeah. And 3 blokes popped up like out of nowhere. They had rushes in their hair with machine guns. Threw their machine guns in the back like we were going on a holiday, hopped in, took off their camo, went down, and we got to the other end, and they said, oh, this is the best thing, because we were going to have to hike those 80 k's. And we said, hey, you guys wouldn't like fish and chips for dinner, would you? They said, oh, that'd be great. So we dropped them off, went into town through the roadblocks that were set up by the army, got fish and chips and a paper and some chocolate and some Cokes, and drove back, and these commandos goes, oh, that's all I've been dreaming about.
We should be right if you ever go back to New Zealand. Let's go back a little bit now. The Castle, the movie that you produced and directed, along with Jane Kennedy, Tom Gleisner, who was also involved in the fishing show, and Santo Chalaro. It's been a sensational hit for you, $750,000 with a budget, and you've already gone past $8 million, ladies and gentlemen. And it is sensational, I feel, because it doesn't compromise the fact that it is an Australian movie. It's not trying to get an American involved or an Englishman involved or anything like that to sell it overseas. It is uniquely Australian. A lot of great character involved in it. Where do some of the ideas come from?
Well, I mean, I grew up, you know, I always say to you, I grew up on the opposite side of the river from you, the Maribyrnong.
Yeah.
In Avondale Heights. And growing up, I mean, no one walked dogs, everyone walked greyhounds. I mean, no one had a dream to own Mahogany or anyone up there. It was, you know, Bel Air Prince or something like that. And so you grew up thinking dogs were pretty vicious because everything had a muzzle on it. And we grew up and, you know, my dad thought he was buying into the best real estate on earth, and gradually the dirt track outside turned into a freeway.
Yeah, right,
and
okay.
the windows used to rattle, and he'd get out the front and he'd go, "Rob, how much would this place be worth if it was in Toorak?" So, I mean, it was all of that, and Santo as well, and all of us had that kind of suburban background. And so we sat down and we put it together. And I remember my cousins grew up around the corner from an airport, and there are houses to this day that are right on the runway from the old days. And so we went along, knocked on a door and said, could we shoot the film in the people's house?
There was some worry that people from the western and northern suburbs, where we both grew up, might have taken it the wrong way, thought that these smart Alex might be just taking a little bit out of them. But you went to a lot of the early movies and sat up the back and sat with fingers crossed, and you got a great reception. We
did. Look, and I got to say, you know, people go, oh, you know, you might be having a go with a few people, you know, with the Ugg boots, and I got to say, I wear Ugg boots. I was going through a cupboard the other day, and I went, oh, geez, I did have a pair of Ugg boots. And I think where we drew the line is we didn't use them as formal wear.
No, exactly, yeah.
But you would have had a set of mockies, wouldn't you, Ed?
Well, it was touch and go whether I did wear them to the wedding, but didn't quite get there. I've actually got the upper class brand of moccasins. The new ones are out there, the Doug Hawkins brand of moccasin. It's fantastic. Got his own name on them these days.
Geez, they're comfortable. Go on.
The castle, you've signed a 3-movie deal with Village.
Yeah, we'd like to do it. Look, we'd love to do movies in Australia. It's pretty hard to, you know, I mean, we've got Batman and Liar Liar and Lost World, and we can't afford the dinosaurs. So we've got to, you've got to do stories about Australia, and that's why I'm happy to go on doing stories about the suburbs or the outback or things like that, because that's an area that I don't think anyone can compete with us. And I don't. People say, what's the Australian sense of humour? And I say, I don't know it, but if I find it, I'll steal it and put it in a film, for sure. Now,
Rob, you finished your medical career, went into radio on Triple M, on the D Generation. Then, of course, we've seen you go on to The Late Show on the ABC, and now Frontline has been the success over the last 3 series. It's been fantastic for you. Very high ratings, acclaim all around Australia, and the world for that matter. It's now being shown overseas. How big has Frontline been for you?
Oh, it's like all those things. You know, you hear footballers say, oh, what I really like is the team. And I guess when you're doing a show like that, you stop worrying about the program and how many people are watching it, and you just enjoy the team first and foremost. And when that was we put a fish in it. Yeah. As you can see, it's a tremendous satire on the media.
Well, how hard is it for you there? Because you also direct Frontline.
Yeah.
Jane Kennedy, of course, who was Brooke Vandenberg, is also involved, and Santo Cilara shoots it, and Tommy Gleisner again involved there. But you have to be a director, producer, and also star of the show. Well,
I think in comedy you've got to. It's like a baby. You've got to look after it. You can't leave it in the car outside the casino. You've got to hold on to it. And that we only started. Well, I don't. In many ways, I'd rather not direct, but I think when you've written the script and we rotate the direction just to make sure that it ends up the way we intended. But you know, it's a show we're proud of in the fact that we enjoy it, and everyone that comes up speaks so positively of it. So it's been a bit of a win-win for us.
Rob, thanks very much for joining me. A River Somewhere. Good luck with it next week on ABC Television, next Wednesday. Rob Sitch, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
John, Ed.